Hello students, welcome to COM 555. This is week 3 and this week we are looking at new media technologies. As we look at the week 3 agenda, you'll see that you're finishing up reading your Groundswell text, so that means we should be wrapping it up this week. So you may be at different points within the text in your reading, which is completely fine. You're watching 3 videos. These videos really discuss the idea of an open concept world with digital media implications and ideas that can help you with new media technologies and particularly social media in some of those videos. We have our discussion number 3, which is due on Friday, with reply posts due on Sunday, as well as book review number 1 that is due on Sunday, that is covering the Groundswell text. You'll find that discussion 3, you can see here on the screen, I brought in some samples and such to help you utilize it, asks you to conduct a content analysis of the UNESCO website. This site is actually pretty phenomenal in terms of communicating information to people from a global intercultural perspective as well as a digital media perspective. But what I want you to do is take a look at this from an analytical perspective, examine the entire site for usefulness and effectiveness of communication with the global setting in which they are disseminating the information. Program 3 of the UNESCO site describes the role of their communication as how it is listed here to stimulate development of research, especially concerning socio-cultural impact of new communication technologies. It gives you some more information from that on there. So that's what Program 3 of the UNESCO site tells them that the role is of their communication in terms especially of digital communication. After you've looked at the website, you've looked at the 3 points that they try to subscribe to when they are utilizing their website. I want you to look at and analyze one of the theme pages. So you can see here on the graphic, it is not very large. It is a lot bigger on Blackboard, but it gives you some ideas of where to find the themes. You can see the red arrow is pointing to the content menu item that states themes. When you click that, a drop down will come and it'll list a number of different themes for you to choose from, and that's where I want you to conduct your analysis. Now, this can be on education, facilitating and providing heritage, many different things. Just pick one of those pages and analyze them, utilizing the goals that they are trying to set within Program 3 of their own site, which is listed in the discussion board prompt. Compare the theme to the general content of the site as well. Compare and contrast with outside journal articles, as well as one communication theory for its effectiveness and use of digital media dissemination. Determine the site's effective if it's effectively utilizing at least one media theory and identifying what theory is used. That's going to be interpretive for you to determine if you see use of that theory somewhere along the lines, and provide a reflection of the theme, review it and its contribution to Program 3 of the UNESCO site, as well as sharing how Program 3 may or may not be useful in the process of digitization and new media communication plans. So it's really important to know that we're looking at this site to see how effective it is and what it's doing and getting information out to the masses. When you look at the book review number 1, all of this information is in Blackboard, so I'm going to highlight important concepts. Make sure you read through all of the discussion, read through all of the prompts on this assignment. There are 4 major things that you need to do. I do give you approximations on how long each section should be. The primary thing you do need to remember that this needs to be an APA style with a formal cover page, abstract, reference pages, and such. Know that your page count does not count those things as well. After you've read the Groundswell text, you'll need to find at least 4 outside sources that are scholarly, so research articles that support some of the findings you found in the text. You'll notice that Groundswell is more applicable in the sense of professional application. It also is a case study text in some regards because it gives you some examples of case studies and how they talk about fueling and establishing and generating a groundswell in whatever area you want to communicate within. And so take some concepts of what the groundswell is, how you nurture it, how you feed it, how you fuel it, some of the case studies, and find at least 4 outside sources that support whatever it is you want to cover about the text. Now, in a book review, I'm not necessarily looking for a reflection or regurgitation of the text. I know what they're saying in the text. I've read the book myself many times, and I completely understand what Groundswell is all about. What I want you to do is to select major principles and major ideas from the text and conduct a critical review. Support those critical review points and those principles that you think are imperative with outside sources to tell me why you think the book may or may not necessarily be effective, but is exemplary or inexemplary in communicating its main points. So I'm looking for you to critically evaluate it. I want to see what you would say if you were a book critic about this text from a scholarly graduate level perspective. So in that, your first page is going to be an introduction point where you are establishing background and remembering your audience and reminding them of what this text is about very briefly, and then providing some introductory information we need to know about where you're going in this paper to argue whatever point you may want to point. Maybe you really think the groundswell is effective, the whole idea and methodology of creating this groundswell online with digitization of communication, utilizing social media, and whatever it may be. Wonderful. You need to establish that in your first page by giving me a background and reminding me of where that is in the text so I can understand that. The second thing you'll do is identify minor and major principles, dealing with only the most pressing issues of the book and what it means to your point of what you want to prove about the book being great or not, depending on what you think from a scholarly graduate level perspective. Once you've done that, that's where you'll conduct your actual critical review. You will analyze it and evaluate it to me so the reader can not just be informed of what the book was about, but completely understand what the topics are of the book and how effective they are in delivering those topics or them being effective for the use in mass communication. That's going to be where the bulk of your paper is. That's going to be where I'm spending the most amount of time really evaluating your understanding of the text, one, but understanding your ability to analyze it and critically evaluate it at the level that you need to be doing that. The last page will be where you start to sum up your conclusion. You will provide an evaluation or discussion of your review. So choose a few points you wanted to discuss and how you felt in the review they may or may not have been effective, and you start to wrap up your paper. So remember, this is following APA style guidelines. It is 5 to 7 pages in length. That's in the content, not with the cover and the references. I'm looking for not just what you think about the book or what the book was about, but a critical evaluation of how you feel the book may or may not have been effective to some degree. So you don't have to talk about the book as a whole. You can point out maybe 3 or 4 things that you found to be effective in the book that you want to highlight and show and prove that through providing scholarly sources to demonstrate why it was effective. So if you think the groundswell was effective, you found a source to back it up, you'll bring that in your critical review and evaluation of the text. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm more than willing to sit down and chat with you by phone or email if you need to work out some of those issues you may have. So I wanted to review McLuhan. And what I mean by review, I know it may not have been explicitly covered yet in this text or the course, or it may have. I mean my review is providing a programmatic review of it because I know we covered extensively in our COM 525 class, and I wanted to highlight his relevance and importance in this particular class. So McLuhan, as we know, was known as one of the greatest mass communication theorists. He fell into that trade by accident. For those of you that remember or not, he was a literary scholar. He was academically qualified in the area of English, not communication, but fell into it because of his fascination for communication technologies. We know, just to recap, since we're talking about this a lot in this type of course, that mass communication is the study of how people exchange information through mass media, digital media, many different segments of the population at the same time. So it's sending media information to the masses and in segments of the population at the same time. To further understand mass communication is dealing with the impartation and exchange of information on large scales to a wide variety of people. It's disseminating information to the masses. It is the process where media organizations produce and transmit messages to the public, and the process by which those messages are sought, used, and understood by and influenced by audiences. So we will be focusing our understanding on messaging and communication technologies primarily this week as we wrap up the Groundswell text. One way we do this is by exploring and studying McLuhan. So Marshall McLuhan was a noted communication scholar, as we know, who focused on communication technologies and how they shape society. This is where we're starting to bring in that connection to the course. So he tells us, McLuhan says, that we should not focus on what we are saying. Rather, we have communicated the same messages throughout time to each other, and those have stood the test of time. Rather, as budding communication professionals and scholars, more importantly, and thinking about this at a graduate level, we need to consider that technologies we use communicate with us as influential in society. In a nutshell, McLuhan was telling us it's more important that we consider smartphones, televisions, and the internet as influential in society and not the messages that we're saying. We've been saying the same things to each other throughout the course of times. Husbands and wives, friends, sisters, siblings, whatever it may be, have been communicating similar messages across time to each other on a number of things. Your mother is having a very monumental birthday this year. You're going to communicate the same things you would have communicated with each other about planning that birthday 40 years ago as you would today. So according to McLuhan, we need to spend more time considering what we're using to communicate with one another rather than what we're actually communicating with each other. That's one of the primary focuses of this course. That's also one of the primary focuses of what we're looking at in discussion number 3 that is due this week. We're looking at more of what is influential about what we're using to communicate rather than what we are communicating ourselves. I'll say that again to reiterate it because it's very, very profound. We need to focus more in this course on what it is we are using to communicate, the devices, the technology, things of that matter, rather than what we're actually communicating ourselves. That's one of the core principles of this course. It's more profound in how we communicate than what we are communicating. Simply put, I want to think about how we just consider what does it say when we thrive on instant updates about news and the lives of our social media followers and what's going on, rather than what it is we're saying. It seems society, according to McLuhan, will undoubtedly become more obsessed with the instant gratification of current communication technologies than what people or companies are saying to us. The profound notion of McLuhan's ideas is in that he hypothesized this in the 1960s, long before the digital revolution as we experience it today. He had his own idea of what a digital revolution was through the use of the telephone and television, and he was prophesizing these profound things about communication and communication technologies to us at that point in the 60s and 70s. Not only has that come to fruition at that point in his life, but it's even more influential and more profound looking at it, what it has to do with now in this digital revolution we've been experiencing. There are some things here that he wants to, and this overall concept is known as technological determinism. It's important to know that. Technological determinism says it's more important that we consider what communication devices we are using to communicate rather than the communication ourselves. That's important to keep in mind. He also coined phrases like the global village and the medium is the message. He was fascinated with new technologies and how they influenced our lives. Really, the medium is the message. Consider the fact that it's the medium we're using to communicate rather than what it is the message is, which gets into this idea of technological determinism and that technology is determining what is influential and profound in society rather than what is being said in society. They go hand in hand. The global village was coined in 1962, where McLuhan theorized that a new age of electronic communication had shrunk the world to the size of a village. A small village would allow for instant communication, whereas a world would not. So he said these profound things, and I put this quote here in the slide because I really like it, and that it says, the medium is the message is merely to say that personal and social consequences of any medium, that is, of an extension of ourselves, is a result from the new scale that is introduced into our affairs by each extension of ourselves by any new technology. So when we consider technological determinism and how technology determines and drives society, as well as this idea that the medium is the message, not the message itself, it's profound to think about how we analyze things within the course. So I wanted to point that out to you so you could kind of wrap your head around it at a deeper level and maybe become more aware if you already knew about McLuhan, or if not, are now introduced to him. Don't forget that we are wrapping up our week 3 this week. We're almost at that halfway point in the course, so we're finishing our first book review on the Groundswell text. We have a discussion board that is due on Sunday with replies. A discussion board that is due on Friday with your replies due on Sunday. Forgive me. Your original post is due on Friday for the discussion board with your replies due on Sunday. We're watching some videos that help relate to a lot of the information that we're covering this week. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. I look forward to interacting with you and pray you all have a blessed week. I've really enjoyed going through all of your assignments thus far and look forward to our interactions. God bless.